Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Comics. I am your host, Jim Viscardi, and this is the podcast where we go one-on-one with your favorite creators in comics, and we go deep into their journeys, their inspirations, their creative process, and so much more. Today, we've got a truly special guest, someone whose work is as dynamic as it is powerful. He is someone I've admired for a really, really long time, someone I've long been wanting to get on the show. That person is no other than Sanford Greene. Sanford Greene's been making waves in this business for a while now, and his work has this kind of unmistakable energy to it that fits both a mainstream audience, an independent audience, and is just all around great comics. You may know him from his work on Power Man and Iron Fist, but really what you probably should know him for is his work on Bitterroot from Image Comics. Bitterroot is coming back with Bitterroot, The Next Movement. We're super excited about it, and so we're going to get into a lot of that today. And that's a book that has won a number of awards and basically has cemented Sanford as one of the most exciting artists in comics today. It's a book that he co-created with writers David F. Walker and Chuck Brown. It is no short of a genre-bending kind of masterpiece that blends horror, history, social commentary, while following a family of monster hunters in the Harlem Renaissance. And so the next movement kind of moves the timeline up a little bit into the 60s. And so to hear Sanford talk about a lot of the inspiration for this next chapter for that family is a lot of fun. And so we're going to talk about his journey into comics. Sanford is also a teacher at Benedict College. And so we're going to talk about the prevalence of visual arts and more specifically comic book courses in universities today, what he teaches his students, what he's got a ton of great insight for young creators or creators looking to break in on how and what. He says he came up in a class of artists that are all crushing it today. So to kind of hear him reminisce about that is fun. Full stop. So without further ado, if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's talk comics. Sanford, welcome.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You are someone who I feel like I've admired from afar for a really, really long time. So I'm actually excited to get a chance to chat a bit more about some of the nitty gritty of what you do, how you do, and why you do it.
Cool. Cool.
To start and to kind of set a frame of reference for folks, and the question I usually start with is, was comics always the goal for you? Was it was high school Sanford I love comics so much, this is what I want to do with my life and this is what I'm going to do? Or was there a separate path, potentially an alternate universe, where Sanford became an accountant or something?
Funny enough, music was kind of like neck and neck with my interest in doing comics. I thought I wanted to be a DJ. Back then, I don't know if DJing was that lucrative. Now it's pretty lucrative. But back then, mid 90s, it wasn't really, early 90s, it wasn't quite there yet. But for the most part, the art side of it was always there. Doing comics, I don't know. I think I love the idea. I just didn't understand the business or how to, break into that business.
Sure.
I grew up right before the internet became a really big thing. So, there wasn't a whole lot of access and understanding, like these kids today, click of a button, they get everything they need to know about everything.
Right.
So how I even got into comics to begin with was very, um, I call it mom and pop. I grew up in a small town. Um,
Right.
Went to the local Kmart, if you can remember those
I remember
stores.
those.
Um, Saw those comics on a spinner rack, which is, you can see to my
Love it.
right here. And it caught my attention. It was like seeing these mounds of books with all these incredible illustrations on these covers, and I correlated it to um, what I saw on Saturday morning cartoons, and it's the connection happened immediately, and I wanted those books
Hmm.
because I was in love with the cartoons that I saw, and obviously here's a way to see those visuals um, in book form, because I would try to draw from the cartoons as a kid. Obviously,
Hmm.
VCRs wasn't quite as available. Um, we had one, but my mom would kill me every time I try to pause stuff to watch. But she she saw that I was interested in doing these comics, and
Yeah.
wanted to read the comics, or at least look at the comics. And she bought them. She said, "I'll buy these if you read them." And I've been reading and buying ever since. And
Nice.
full circle.
Was comics uh a bit of a solitary experience for you in that, like, they were just, you loved them, your mom obviously, noticed that, and so she bought them for you, or like, when did you begin to like see, like, or was there a group of folks or friends or anyone that you kind of maybe shared some of that with?
Man, this was solo, man. This was not a group experience at all. I had friends that liked to draw and stuff like that.
Right.
But nah, if you weren't playing basketball, football,
Hmm.
obviously, girls, those kind of
Right.
things were the interests of most of my friends, me as well. But I had this
Sure.
comic thing that kept gnawing at me,
Hmm.
so I would go off to the side and do this comic thing, this solitary comic thing, and come back as if everything is normal. Like, hey guys, what are we getting into here?
Right.
But it wasn't until about close to me graduating high school before
Okay.
other kids really saw what I was into, like in that realm.
Right.
Because I became kind of I became the guy that could draw anything, even
Hmm.
though I couldn't draw everything. They just
Right.
thought I did because I did some drawing, and so they would ask me to draw them as superheroes and all this kind of stuff. And so I
Sure.
had a little bit of a little popularity, but that window was small.
Right.
I couldn't carry it into other spaces too much.
Hmm. So then in that case, what, graduating high school, after graduating high school, what was the plan?
College,
Okay.
but before I got to the college that I went to, I tried to submit to the Joe Kubert School.
Okay.
If you remember that school, it's still around,
Yep.
but it was the first of its kind. There's comic programs pretty much at almost every institution at this point, but it was
Sure.
one of the first of its kind. You had some other schools like Savannah College of Art and Design,
Yep.
and you
SCAD and
had the Ringling
SVA in New
School.
York.
Yeah, they're in New York. I'm sorry, the Ringling School's in Florida.
Yep.
The Savannah College of Art, of course, is in Savannah.
Yep.
And but yeah, so there were few and far between. But yeah, I tried to go there. My parents thought I was out of my mind. Like, we're not paying for anything out of this state.
Sure.
You're going to go to school, you're going to go local. So, long story short, um, last minute decision, because a friend of mine got me a scholarship at Benedict College, which is my alma mater, obviously. And
Hmm.
uh, I'm glad I went. I can tell you that for
Yep.
sure. At the beginning, I was kicking and screaming because I thought I would go to Joe Kubert School. But
But did you go for like some kind of
illustration
visual
and art,
arts
yeah,
degree
yeah,
illustration?
yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yep. Met my mentor there, Tyrone Jeter, who's a brilliant illustrator. He worked on children's books, which
Hmm.
was for me kind of the a real, true education in real time of what it would look like to be published or to get a
Hmm.
job as an illustrator um, in publication, because children's books are similar to comic books. They're way more advanced in terms of like scheduling, but for the
Sure.
most part, they have a similar schedule or similar process in terms of getting published. And
Right.
so, long story short, um, he really showed me what it took to build my portfolio, um, build my art skills, um, understand and understand the beginnings of getting opportunities in these various industries. So I'm
Sure.
definitely grateful that I went there. Had I went to any other school, I don't know if I would have gotten. That experience was very personal. I was like
Hmm.
in a very, it was almost a one-on-one education
Mm.
opportunity. So grateful to have had that opportunity.
Nice. So then coming out of college, what happens next, right?
What
Like, so
happens
you've
next?
gotten this experience, you start doing, you're like, well, like, do you keep trying to pursue the comics thing, or is it at some point where you're like, because obviously, we'll talk about this a little bit, you've got a
Hmm.
little bit of a history in animation,
Yep.
history in working in video game design and things like that.
Yep.
um how do those things kind of pop up, and I have to assume that the comics thing just keeps simmering a little bit in the background until
Yeah.
you're ready
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I was flailing around as a you know uh, graduate. Luckily, I got an internship as a graphic designer.
Okay.
Um, Believe it or not, it was designing the Yellow Pages. Like this was at the tail end of the
Oh,
Yellow Pages.
really?
Oh, yeah, I it, it was going into like we did the website for the Yellow Pages,
Okay.
and they also had the hard copy, the published version
Yep.
of it. Still, it was on the tail end of it.
Right.
Do they still publish those things? I don't even know, man. I
I,
think
I think they do, but I feel like they're a lot thinner these days.
it's
For
got to
for
be
anyone listening and has no idea what the Yellow Pages
the
is,
Yellow Pages. Yeah.
take any one of Image's recent compendiums that we've printed recently. I've got one here. I'll just pull it
Yeah.
up. Right. This is about how thick they were. They're thick,
Yep.
meaty. If you held them to your chest, it could stop a bullet.
That's right.
That's what the Yellow Pages were, and
You,
it
you can
it
use it to prop
was.
up you can use it to prop up a coffee table.
Yeah,
One side of it is,
exactly.
yeah,
It
it's
was it
very
was
sturdy.
it was old it was old days Google Maps is
That's
what it
right.
was.
That's right. Yeah. So we did that. I did that for about a year and a half. That's where I
Was it
really
like any
learned.
particular sections, or like what's there's
Man,
got to be a weird Yellow Pages story
everything, man.
there
I did
somewhere.
everything from car ads to refrigerator, ads
Right.
to you name it.
I
We
love it.
did it. But it was a great experience because I learned Photoshop, like really learned how to use
Okay.
Photoshop during that time. And every blue moon, they would need us. Some company would need something very very specific, and
Hmm.
they would ask me to take a crack at illustrating it. So
Okay.
that was kind of cool. But for the most part, man, it was just click, right click, drag,
Move
cut,
around.
paste. Yeah, but I understood. I learned the Photoshop, and I understood. Started to understand like composition, layout, that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
So
Right.
there was some.
The original 9-panel grid. Forget
That's
Alan
right. The
Moore.
original.
That was the Yellow Pages. The original
That's right.
9-panel grid.
Yeah. Yeah, but
uh,
shortly after that, but during that time, I still was trying to get my portfolio out there, and
hmm
actually went to um, Wizard World when Wizard World
Yeah.
was like the
That was the
you know
thing. It
yeah, the
was
preeminent
those were the regional shows.
yeah and bigger than San Diego at the time.
Yeah.
And this is towards the tail end of it being a huge show, um, capacity wise. As a matter of fact, those were the shows that kind of, I like to say, there was a class of artists that's pretty permanent now that all came from those shows. A lot of those guys and girls I used to hang out with, we
Like
were,
who?
fledgling, uh, artists trying to figure this thing out, and
Hmm.
all of us were just starting out. And, you know,
Well,
uh,
so I'd love to
yeah,
actually, if we can, we unpack that a little bit more. So
yeah.
like as you were, um, who was kind of part of that community that you kind of
Yeah.
built with yourself, and um what were some of your early takeaways
Mm.
in just as a younger professional trying to figure out how the hell to break into this crazy business?
Yeah, this is during a time where no one was a professional, but we're all
Right.
pretty substantial now. At least the folks that I'm going to mention: Scotty Young,
Mhm.
Sean Murphy, Gordon Murphy, I think was around during that time. A young upstart Robert Kirkman was trying to figure things out. He was trying to figure some things out, and that whole crew of
Yeah.
folks that kind of, they're all kind of, they were all kind of like a gang then. Him, Corey Walker, and
Hmm.
Ryan Otley, they were all in a group even then, talking about, hey, we had this idea about creating this superhero comic, and again, I'm young, I don't know anything. I'm like,
Right.
it's funny because you don't know what anything is going to become.
Sure.
You just have hopes and aspirations and all that stuff, and you see what sticks if you can get an
Hmm.
opportunity. And yeah, man, it was a good bit of folks. You know, God, man, I'm trying to think of some other names.
So is it one of those things where, obviously, you'd see each other at shows, and is it, hey, here's some of my new stuff, what do you think? Or does it inevitably become, hey, I met so and so editor, or I've got so and so idea, and we're just gonna go for it
Yeah,
there? Or
yeah. Well, I did a earlier interview where I talked about, my first published work came from Wizard World. This book called The Black Arrow. Don't go looking
Mhm.
for it. He's looking for it already. I can see it. Look at his Black Arrow, Sanford Greene. But it was one of those things where this guy, I got the advice from um, a few editors from Marvel. Um, Everyone and their grandmother wanted a job at Marvel,
Sure.
obviously. Image, of course, as well, DC. But the advice was to try to show your portfolio to smaller publishers, and that was pretty much the direction that I took, because I knew that I needed to kind of get my feet wet and figure this thing out. It
Mhm.
would have been nice to get a job at Marvel and Image off the rip, but I don't know if I would be here today if that happened. But yeah, I showed my work around this publisher. I forgot the name of the publisher, but the name of the book was called The Black Arrow.
Mhm.
And they saw my work and said, "Hey, we really like your stuff. Would you be interested in doing a series?" And I was just over the moon. I was so excited because it's like, oh wow, these people actually, you know, they value or like my work. Again, I'm still in school, about to
Right.
graduate college, working at a Yellow Page at the studio, and I had all these spinning plates, and I was able to, get that opportunity. That was you couldn't tell me anything. I was so excited and so grateful for it, and I'm glad I took that advice to go that route because it definitely trained me and helped me to, move forward.
Yeah. So post your Yellow Pages career, uh, was,
I don't know if I want to
uh,
call it a career. That was I don't know, internship slash pay the bills.
there you go.
Yeah.
Uh, so what are some of the next steps after that?
Well, without going too far down
Sure.
the rabbit hole, you get the opportunity, and truth be told, I was in a space during that time. We're talking late '90s, like
Mm-hmm.
'99, 2000, somewhere around that time. Um, and Marvel and DC were completely out. They were stylistically, everything had to look like Brian Hitch or Jim Lee or something like that, right?
Right.
Um, so either do um, the independent stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
hope that that kind of materializes into something else, or you figure something else out. And luckily for me, um, I went to a few more comic cons, and I think I went to my first San Diego Comic Con. I had
Okay.
already done a few things at Marvel, but it wasn't anything that materialized. Again, like I said, stylistically, I just wasn't what
Sure.
was in vogue at the time.
Sure.
And
But that never deterred you, though, right? Like,
it
did you ever at any point think to yourself, like, well,
quit.
if I want to do this, do
Yeah,
I need to change my style in a
sure.
sense, or did you feel like, well, F it, this is
Yeah,
what I want to do, and this is how I'm going to do it, and I get it. It's not their
yeah.
cup of
I,
tea, and
I
I'll
feel
I'll
like it
figure
was
it
a
out.
little. Yeah, it's a little bit of all of that. There were moments where you feel like, oh, am I cut out for this? I don't know if I can do this. I'm not getting enough opportunities and work, and I'm a young married guy at the time, just graduated college, trying to figure this
Hmm.
thing out. Wife pregnant, newly pregnant, and now
Right.
really feeling the pressure, and
A lot of responsibilities.
a lot of responsibilities, kind of falling at my feet, and I had to make some decisions, and it's funny because every time I made a decision, or at least kind of made my mind up in terms of, well, I don't think this is going to work now. I might need to go and, I don't know, work at a night shift at Walmart or something. Whatever
Sure.
it took. Every time I got that attitude, that mindset, and it wasn't so much quitting, is more pivoting. Like,
Hmm.
okay, this ain't working right now. I still need to make a living. But every time I got that mindset, something would come along. But it
Mm.
was always something that wasn't really comic books per se. It was animation, video game stuff. And kind of going back to that story, when I went to my first San Diego, that's when it kind of really opened up for me in terms of like other opportunities outside of comics, because that convention has a lot of um, everything that is influenced by comics, animation, video games, toy stuff, all that stuff. And so that is where a lot of opportunities came, because stylistically at the time I had what they would consider a cartoony style. And again, if you're not Ryan Hitch or Jim Lee or what have you, that super rendered stuff, it wasn't a lot of opportunities in actual published books. But
Hmm.
for some reason in animation, they gobbled it up. They loved it, and so that's where my opportunities came. And I thought I was going to end up going into animation, or something like that. And so for
Right.
about 3 years, that was pretty much where everything really came from. And
Hmm.
fast forward from there, around 2007, 8. Um, I got reached out to from a friend of mine, Nachi Castro, who used to be an editor
Mm.
at DC. he, I would see him at conventions. He would always say, "Hey man, I really love your stuff. Just trying to find the right thing. You hear it all the time, the right thing,
Right.
whatever that is." And for some reason, he hit me up one day and said, "I think I got the perfect thing, man. If you're open to it." And it was this Wonder Girl miniseries.
Mm.
I think that was 2007. And I said, "Sure, that sounds cool." Mind you, stylistically, they, I was doing. It was nothing like what I'm doing now. It was very clean,
Right.
cartoon. Again, cartoony, cute.
Yep.
Um, and again, there was a school of us that had that influence, and I think a lot of it came from animation. It definitely came from animation, video
Mm.
games, even more
Yeah.
specifically, anime
Mm.
was huge. Um, so stylistically, there was a school of illustrators at the time that catered towards that look and that style.
Right.
Jason
Yeah.
Pearson
Scotty
was kind
usually
of a big
points to
influence.
folks like Chris Picciolo, Joe Mad,
Yeah,
Umberto Ramos,
yeah, all
those
those guys,
guys.
all those guys, and
Yeah.
I just mentioned Jason Pearson. Those,
Yep. Jason
he
Pearson.
had a look that was very clean and open at the time.
Yep.
And he did that Body Bags book. Probably was the
Hmm.
most chiaroscuro kind of
Yep.
style, but right after that, it became more open and stylistically, it's cleaner line, not a lot of blacks. And so I was just really into that kind of stuff. And but yeah, this Wonder Girl miniseries was kind of the beginnings of me really coming back into the comic stuff. And it
Right.
was kind of a touch and go because as soon as that ended, um, they wanted to kind of keep me around, but I only got the books that had the animation and influence
Kind. Yep.
to it. What am I thinking? Justice League Unlimited,
Yep.
Batman Adventures. Those Warner Brother animation titles. So I did a lot of that stuff, and it was cool. But I knew that I couldn't do anything else outside of that. So I was in a weird kind of way the go to guy for anything like that. So you
Right.
end up kind of pigeonholing yourself.
Because
Um,
then you're kind of locked into a schedule,
you
right?
lock
And
in
so
you
then,
lock into a style even more
yeah.
specifically. You're locked into, oh, we want this clean cartoony style, for kid friendly. I only did the kid friendly books, and I wanted to do some dirty, grimy stuff too, but
Sure.
stylistically, it just wasn't there.
Yeah.
Opportunities weren't there. So
Right.
I decided to try to make a pivot and change up on my style instead of getting people to ink my work. I decided to try to ink my own stuff because again,
Hmm.
it's funny because a lot of the artists that I mentioned earlier, we all were influenced by that clean animated style, clean
Yep.
lines, and there's a dozen other artists around that time that was really big on that. And but then um, a few artists kind of, I don't know, they kind of, it was like a breakthrough,
Hmm.
not from our school, but artists that we started to discover. Um, Paul Pope was probably on the
Okay.
top of that list. He was one of the
Hmm.
guys that I I didn't know what I was looking at, but I knew that I loved it. I'm like, this looks like, wait, is this manga? No, wait, this wait, what is this? It's so full of
Hmm.
life, so full of, but you can tell that he was definitely influenced by manga. I didn't
Hmm.
really, I wasn't able to immediately pick up on everything he was doing, but it definitely, I kept going back to it.
Hmm.
I would see something new and try to emulate it, not knowing what technique he, he used or what approach he went about doing it. I just saw something and tried to emulate it, and it was rough. It was horrible. It was horrible. And it was. I did. I won't name the project, but I did a project where I tried to do this cool, brushy stuff, and it's kind of like when the pendulum swings. It swings completely one side,
Sure.
and completely the other, and that's what I did. And slowly but surely, I kind of went back and got centered. And I think that didn't really come together until a few years later when I got on
Mm-hmm.
Power Man and Iron Fist at Marvel.
Right. Okay.
That's when it started to make sense.
So I got to ask. During all that, it sounds like, for you, one of the things that it seemed that you kind of had a knack for and were really good at was the networking aspect of the business. What would you say are some of the more intimidating aspects about networking that maybe you felt that you really kind of nailed and got better at as you felt more comfortable?
Well, now there's a different question. You told me you were going to have some different questions, man.
Yeah.
I think being in spaces like conventions where these other brilliant creators are in the same space, and you fight the urge to compare. I mean, you're going to do it anyway.
Sure.
Imposter syndrome is a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
It is a real thing, and it's one thing if you're doing it, at home on your computer, looking at Instagram or whatever. But when you're in that space, obviously Instagram wasn't around back then, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, but you're walking around, you're seeing other people's work, and you're going, "Oh shit!"
You hear about one of your peers getting a really big opportunity, and you are like, "Dang, that's cool," but man, I sure would love something like that. Where's my opportunities? Those kind of things. So you have to fight through those temptations and urges to feel inferior or feel like again, you have to do this self-evaluation. Do I have what it really takes? It's kind of a guarantee, no matter, even in my career now, it's a different level, obviously, but there are moments where I have to do a reassessment. Okay, where am I at right now? Where do I want to go? Those kind of things. So, yeah, so it's a little bit of, intimidation, but it's more of evaluation. Like you're looking at yourself and trying to figure out, or make an assessment of just where you are and where you want to go.
Mm-hmm. You had mentioned earlier that when talking about where you went to school, Benedict College, you teach there now.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned that, like, well, every school has what feels like a comics program or something of that sort. What makes you think, or what do you attribute maybe to the rise of that kind of across campuses, and what are you seeing now on the other side as an educator and as a teacher that maybe you kind of continue to learn from? Because I have got to imagine there's an aspect of that happening too.
Yeah. I attributed this the growth of this to I honestly think conventions was kind of the beginning of it.
Mm-hmm.
And fandom grew from that, and then social media, took it to a whole nother stratosphere. You can go on YouTube and learn everything you need to know if you apply. Um,
Right.
that's the other key to it as well. It's kind of like, I know a lot of, I tell my students all the time, like, um, I can lead you to the water, but I can't make you drink it. It's like I can give you this stuff. So even with all this access at your
Mhm.
fingertips, you still have to put in the work to apply it. So, yeah, you got it. You got more than I I ever had, obviously,
Right.
but you know, it doesn't really make much difference if you're not applying it. That being said, there is a lot more because things are more available. There are kids coming up now in this industry that got in this industry way younger than I did.
Hmm.
And I do believe it's because they have access, and so
Hmm.
I think that's the biggest difference in
Hmm.
where things are.
What are some key fundamentals to a good program for if
Mm.
someone wanted to get like what if someone said like I want to go to school for this, I've got a bunch of options, but what are the things that you think that they need to look out for to make sure that they believe that they may be going to a good one?
Um, Honestly, man, it's this might sound cliche, or just a good work ethic, man. It's like
Sure.
or a good want to, like you have to be willing, or not just think this is something cool to get into. If you're gonna have
Right.
that mentality, that's fine. But if you want to make this like a career, if you're really trying to
Hmm.
push forward to make this, a viable source of your income, then you're almost you almost have to make it. It has to be your life,
Yeah.
especially at that time. You don't have any other responsibilities, you know, dependents or anything like that.
Right.
Um, you have all the time. Um, it sounds like I'm talking to my class right now. I'm having, it's like, I tell them, like, if you can't get it down now, it's going to be a
Yeah.
little more challenging when you're out of school and you have other responsibilities. When you
Hmm.
got to, rent, or
Right.
even greater responsibilities.
Hmm.
That's why I tell a lot of folks, you know, um, I had someone about this a while ago now, probably right around the pandemic. I think is when
Okay.
this guy was about, I think he was definitely more than 30. He was more than 30.
Hmm.
He reached out and said, I've had a long career, and I'm considering trying to finally go after this comic thing. Um, what any advice? What should I do? And I'm like, well, you should have started 20 years ago. No, I didn't say that. I said I did say that that I think that's very courageous of you, because you're coming in to this at that age. It can either it can benefit you, and it can intimidate you, all at the same time. It can
Right.
benefit you, one, because you're mature, more mature. You've had life experiences to know how to balance out things. So that can potentially benefit you. It can be intimidating because you're older. You see these younger folks, super talented, and you start to compare, and that can cause cause some struggle in that.
Sure.
But I say all that to say, it really is about the mindset. I mean,
Yeah.
you can be the most talented person in the world, but if you don't have the work ethic, I say to students, it is 75%. Um, it is 25% talent, 75% mental.
Hmm.
Maybe give or take, a few percentages. But
Sure.
I think this here is way more important than your talent, because
Right.
I can get you there with the talent, if you or the skill. But if you aren't putting in the work, and you don't want to do the work, and you don't have the desire to, or you're
Yeah.
just, for lack of
Then
better
forget about
words,
it.
lazy, good luck.
So then for you to get kind of continuation on like the education track for a sense, you had mentioned you'd done the work on Wonder Girl, and it was a style that you didn't necessarily want to get pigeonholed with, and you start trying some stuff, and then you get to Power Man Iron Fist, which you attribute to kind of being a real big break for you in the business. But what were some of the steps along the way for you as far as where did you go to learn about things like storytelling and playing with panels and even down to things like character design and things like that? Is that stuff that you feel like you kind of picked up along the way, or was it really more when you really honed what you wanted your art to look like in something like Power Man Iron Fist, is that it really all clicked for you?
It's still clicking to me, man. I'm learning every day. I try to figure out, not try to, I see new things. I was just looking at a video retrospective of John Paul Leon. And I'm like, I need everything this man has ever created. Which I do have a few things. I've got his Winterman artist edition.
Yeah.
I was afraid to open it because it was so gorgeous and it was overwhelming.
Right.
So I just decided, I try not to look at a lot of work right before I do a project. I look at it while I'm putting together a project. And
okay.
once I kind of soak in as much as my brain can handle, then I go off and try to do something. But yeah, I'm you know, that breakthrough, the breakthrough thing is very real, but it's kind of like organic. I couldn't give you any moment other than like a project, like the Power Man Iron Fist project. I look back at that project and I'm like, my God, what was I doing? But it was me trying, I was trying to figure stuff out. And I
right.
definitely can see there was some moments where I'm like, oh my God, I should have done this. But I'm like, you know what? I didn't do it. I'm doing it now though. And I think that's what counts, right? It's like people get, oh man, I wish I had not done this back then or whatever. I'm like, well, you didn't do it back then. You're going to kill yourself for something that's completely gone. It's in the ether. What are you going to do now? So, I have to, this goes back to the mental versus the talent. Because I know a lot of super talented people, myself included, we can get in our heads and, paralysis by analysis, over analysis. You just kind of overthink stuff and just like you're worrying about stuff that you have no real control over, or stuff that's already come and gone.
How do you break out of stuff like that? Did you just have to go get up and take a walk, or you just literally are just like screw it, I am making this happen, I'm gonna do it, and it's just sheer force of will?
You sometimes you may have to do that sheer force of will on kind of thing, but very rarely do I even attempt that. I'm at a point in my career where, dude, go for a walk. Just go for a walk. Be good. Get some air, get some sun. You know what I mean? Like just, and I usually come back pretty inspired. Like I go out and I shoot hoops with some of these younger guys, and they think, let's get the uncle. He's coming out here to try to, and I'm like, I'm going to show you guys that I still got a little bit in me. And once I kill myself out there doing that, I come back and I think, oh, that wasn't that bad. That direction I was going artistically. Oh yeah, you got this. So, I take my mind off of it, and that way stress relief from all this stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So Power Man Iron Fist is where you meet David Walker.
Yeah. When
did you know that the two of you were like simpatico, and like, oh, we can
do something.
We've got something here.
We actually, it was before Power Man Iron Fist.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. He was writing Shaft for IDW.
Okay.
Shaft IDW had the license to Shaft.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it was all based off of not the films. It was based off of the
Right.
novels. And so I was doing the covers for that,
Okay.
and we met at a book signing for that. And we did a few. There was a couple other things that we did. I did the covers for, and Axel Alonso, um, former Marvel editor in chief, he thought it would be kind of cool to bring back Power Man and Iron Fist, and he asked about who would be a good writer, and I was like, David Walker is top of the list, and I can't remember who. I think he knew David, and David mentioned me, and then
okay.
he Axel met with me, and I mentioned David. We didn't know that about one another. I think that's how it went, and so we were like, okay, I think if that was the person that he thought about, and I was the person that then we should be doing something cool.
Mm-hmm. In doing that, where because that was one of your, like I said, your breakout as far as like an ongoing is concerned, and a bit of a big break for you there. And you continued to kind of do a bunch of either some short stories or some one shots and things of that nature. Let's talk about like kind of the origin story of Bitterroot a bit. Where does that come from? And we'll start there. Where does that come from?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like it happened somewhat simultaneously. So we were on the tail end of a run with Power Man and Iron Fist, but we had wanted to kind of conclude the story with some historical kind of backstory kind of stuff,
right.
with Luke Cage and his family, and we wanted to base it during the Harlem Renaissance time period. On the other side of this, Chuck Brown, who was working on several different projects, and he was, starting to really make a name in the industry. He was coming up in the industry. He wanted to work with me on a project about this family that hunts monsters during the Harlem Renaissance. And I said, wait a minute, I think I got David over here thinking about the same time period, and you have this idea based on, around that time period. What can we come together and see if we can, marry, bring these ideas together, and fast forward, that's what we did. We were able to take, different components of each, approach and ideas, and mesh it together to, get what we have right now in Bitterroot.
How different were some of those early conversations to what you guys inevitably landed on with the first issue? Like, was it a pretty, solid idea in that sense, or did it really kind of change a bit as it came time to put rubber to the road?
I think I will say this. I'll tell you this. I don't think I've shared this with anyone. The original title definitely changed because we were going with. I won't say the title just yet.
Oh no, you've got to, because I've heard you say it was a very '90s title that had blood in it.
Yeah.
So now I need to know.
It was called Bloodborne.
Love it.
Yeah, exactly. It's very '90s. And it's also a video game called Bloodborne.
Right. Yeah.
So I already knew that was out.
That was out.
We can't use this, man. But it was all about the idea it was similar to what we did with Bitterroot, where it was kind of like a double entendre kind of thing, where it means one thing when you say it this way, but it has a deeper meaning. Um, and so the
Because
idea,
Bitterroot was your idea, right?
well, yeah,
Right? The
the
name,
title, the actual
the title. Sorry, the title, not necessarily.
So yeah,
Yeah,
just I just thought it was kind of cool because it was one, it wasn't anything close to blood or born or anything like that.
sure.
There's a lot of bloods and there's a lot of borns as well. So
Right.
I just thought it would be really in, imperative that we had a title that was thought provoking and wasn't cliche-ish. It made you, take a step back and go, whoa, Bitterroot, what is that about?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Um, and again, thinking about, this multiple meaning behind it. Because the Bitterroot on its face value or the face of the name was all about the actual plant, the source of what this family uses to fight these monsters, the Bitterroot plant. And there's a ton of other aspects of how to use, you know, plant and technology, the steampunk technology, to create like this alchemy of, serums that hunts, when they hunt, they can cure and kill if they need to. Kind of these different colors represents these different effects on the monsters. Anyway,
Sure.
so that Bitterroot title was on its face that, but then a deeper meaning behind it is there's a passage in the Bible that talks about not letting a bitter root grow up to defile many. And I started thinking about that because we were during a time where you saw people just seemingly out of nowhere lose their minds in 2020 and so on and so forth, right? But it's like, no, this was here all along. This is just something, this is the manifestation of it. This is something that was festering over time to where you see this ugliness now. And it's like, they're like monsters, right? Not 2020, but in right before dude became president. So that was the beginning of it. We started really seeing this ugliness, and some people were like, oh my God, I can't believe this is how people are behaving and acting. I'm like, no, it's been there all along. Right. This is just something now has helped manifest this thing that's been there all along. So it's like a bitter root that festers over time and it grows into this thing. So that's kind of what that meaning. That's why I thought that title would be really cool. So that's what we went with.
So you've talked about some of the what pitching the book to Eric Stevenson, publisher of Image, was like. Did you feel like it was kind of did you feel like it was a bit of a sure shot slam dunk for you, or, it being one of the first things that you guys have pitched to Image and things like that? Were you like, oh, I don't know, like what, can you talk about like just maybe the butterflies in the stomach there on getting it, on just getting it through so you guys can go do it? Because I think you've said like you guys were going to do it no matter what. But just even the idea of telling somebody else this idea that you have, that you care deeply about, what is that aspect of that process like?
I felt pretty confident, to be honest with you. One, because me and Eric, we had an initial conversation. If you know Eric, if you see him at a convention, you get 2 or 3 words. He says what he needs to say. I'd love for you to do something in Image, man. Let's meet. Let's talk. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. It was as simple as that. And then shortly after that, we had a meeting at another convention. We set up a time where me and David were there. Chuck wasn't there at the time, but me and David went. And 5 minutes in, he was like, whatever you guys want to do, I'm excited to do it. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Look, that's a testament to
Yeah.
to the reputation you've built for yourself, that your artwork obviously speaking for itself.
Yeah.
But I guess for you guys then, what now you are building this world from scratch, right?
Yeah.
The steampunk nature of it obviously is a huge aspect of it. Was that something that you felt that you had to do a bit of research for, or was it something where like, I've got the vibe, I'm going to do my thing, and then kind of mix? Like, how does Sanford's begin to build
Yeah.
this world kind of from the ground up, pencil to paper?
Yeah, there was no, I got this. Let me. None of that.
Are you like a super research heavy kind of guy, or?
I think so. But I think even more so for this, I definitely knew that if we're talking about a specific time period, I wanted to do some things that was true to that time period. So the research, the steampunk thing is one thing. You can kind of be super creative and inventive with that. But if you're talking about, different
landmarks, the locations, and
locations, landmarks from that time period. I mean, even something as background elements, if you will, or different accessories that accompany that time period. There's a newspaper. I can't remember the name of the paper right now, but there's a newspaper that was in one of the issues, and I combed the internet trying to find the typeface, the heading. Of the newspaper. It was just in one panel. It was just in one panel, but I wanted to make sure that because it was a pretty important panel.
Sure, and you didn't want someone reading it who would have called it out, and then it would have been like, "Man, that's Sanford. What a hack!"
Right. It's always that one person like, "Oh, actually, you got the font wrong," and no, I didn't want that. I didn't necessarily want that.
Right.
I tried to get it as close to what it was, and I hand drew it. That's the other thing, which was insane for one. In this, that old English calligraphy style, which is never the type of thing you want to try to draw in the middle of 22 pages. You want to draw calligraphy. I'm like, oh my God, thank God it was just one panel. Even though the panel was significant, it was.
Yeah.
But research was, or is a thing that I take pretty seriously. Even in our next installment here. Don't want to jump too far ahead of myself, but there's a lot of research. The challenge, honestly, though, was the time period in our first 3 arcs, taking place in the the late 1920s, 30s, and sort of kind of touching on the 40s. There wasn't a whole lot of like prominent, reference to look at, vehicles and big broad stroke stuff like that, but some other nuanced stuff like the newspaper, like you have to really just take as much as you can from the little that's out there and make it come together. So but yeah, I'm glad we're in the 60s. There's a lot more material out there.
How much back and forth is there between the three of you when you guys are you're putting an issue together? Like, is it a pretty straightforward process for you guys, or is there a bit of, is it like jazz?
Jazz. I think at the beginning it was like jazz. It was like, okay, what's happening here? Oh, okay, I'll just go this direction. I think we finally got our sea legs under us. We got the plots. I think David and Chuck kind of work on the plot. I think Chuck more so does kind of like the broad stroke stuff on the entire story arc plot. David goes back in and touches on some stuff there, and then David will go in and start breaking it down, making scripts, Chuck will go over that and see if he can throw something in there that makes sense, and usually does. And then David will come back and tie it all together. Then I draw it.
Then you go to work.
Yep.
What makes what are some fundamentals when looking for a collaborator, especially on something that is creator owned, right? Because usually for the work for hire stuff, some folks get to pick and choose who they work with. That's not necessarily the case for everyone. And so, but what makes a good collaborator in your eyes?
Someone, it's a bit of a touch and go. You want those moments where there's a moment of back and forth. Oh, let's do this. Well, how about this? Well, right. That's cool, but I'd rather go this direction. And you kind of just get a feel to see what level of compromise we can achieve, and then
sure. There's times and inevitably it gets a level of trust, right?
Yeah. So and then there's times where, all right, dude, you take the wheel, and I'm not. You take the wheel, and I'm good. And I think honestly, that's kind of where we're at now. There was at the beginning. There was a lot of that at the beginning. We just didn't know how to work together, to be honest with you.
Sure.
So we were like, David's, hitting me up like, "Did you read the script at all, man?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't know if you ever seen the movie Drumline, where they're doing a routine, and he's doing this own thing. Oh, I thought I added a little something at the end. Okay, that something at the end is making the whole story not work. So I had to learn to pull back, which is funny because we had worked on, Paramount Iron Fist together. But I think, having a second writer, definitely we had to learn how to play ball all together in that manner. So, I think this go round right here, we definitely have a system. And shout outs to Shelly Bond, who is if this was a basketball team, she is the coach. She runs the triangle offense. I'm sorry for all you non-basketball people out there. Just trust me, the triangle offense is unstoppable. There's nothing you can do about it. That offense is beautiful to look at if you run it the right way. So I think she's great at giving us the space to figure things out together and then come in when she needs to.
Do you feel the book is a pretty even third split personality wise between the three of you?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, what's interesting about that? It's that, but it's that in different moments.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like when I'm doing, I don't know, a book signing somewhere.
Right. I'm
there representing the whole group, but I'm there also as myself, kind of like this podcast right here, right? And vice versa for those guys. Like, people reach out to them specifically to do specific things because they are attracted to what they're, they're attracted to whatever they have.
Sure. Their aura.
Yeah. So, that being said, that means we all have our own space in something that we're doing together.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. So the book ends up being a huge fucking success.
A little
smash hit.
A little. Yeah. Doing okay.
That's got to be a roller coaster in and of itself.
Dude, I tell these, we have a kind of an annual get together.
Sure.
Usually at Heroes Con.
Yep.
Over the last few years.
Love that show.
Pandemic kind of the pandemic made us more urgent to get together. We're like, dude, we just don't know how much longer this thing's gonna last. Let's try to get together. So we come together and we're sitting back in awe. I said Heroes Con. I meant San Diego. Did I say San
Oh,
Diego?
okay.
That's what I meant. San Diego.
Oh,
Sorry.
San Diego. Okay. Heroes Con's still a great show.
Yeah, it's Hero Con is incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah, San Diego is when we do come together, and we're always just in awe when we have this last San Diego. We had the announcement about it coming back.
Yep.
Did a cool video with everyone screaming in the
Yep.
auditorium. But we did a signing after that, all three of us, and the line was it was a beautiful line. A lot of people there. We hadn't been around. The book hadn't been out at that time in almost 2 years, something like that. And people still came out, and we were like, dude, this is crazy. We're in a good way. We're got our own things and our own spaces, and we try to make things happen in our own spaces. And when we come together, we have our own outlooks on how to make this thing work, and we're trying to mesh all of the personalities and
Mm-hmm.
be willing, some, and on some level, all of us have to compromise. And this thing still worked. Still worked. I was like, oh, okay. I guess we.
I mean, but was it an instance for you where, like, the success of that, does that, you talk about Power Man and Iron Fist being a huge opportunity. Obviously Bitterroot is, does your phone or inbox just start blowing up off the hook in that sense? And like, how do you then feel like you have to manage, like, okay, well, like, what do you do next? Right.
Yeah.
Like actors all the time are always saying you're only as good as the next movie
next project,
or thing that you booked. And so for you, how did you handle that? And, leading up to what is now coming back, getting the band back together for the next movement.
Yeah. The success of Bitterroot definitely opened doors. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, it interesting kind of way, it opened up some doors for me to write as well.
Mm-hmm.
I did a small thing. I doubt if you've seen it because it was a foreign publication. This whiskey ad campaign.
Okay.
With me, Emma Rios, and Ron Wimberly.
Holy shit,
we did the short story for. It was like a comics magazine. These guys spent a lot of money. This whiskey spent a lot of money to promote their whiskey, and they wanted to do comics. And
sure.
So they reached out to us to do this comic thing, and we were like, okay. So I wrote and drew the story. We each wrote and drew stories. So, it went from there. That's kind of like got my feet wet with this writing thing. And they said they saw Bitterroot, which I'm like, this is so random, for something like that. But then something a little more recognizable, Marvel reached out, and and I pitched the idea for Doom, Dr. Doom, and
which you ask anyone who's read that within the last year will tell you is probably the best single issue that they've read. In a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, dude, it's it's humbling, man, because literally, Jonathan Hickman, you might have heard of this guy. He's the upstart. He's a young upstart writer.
He's written some books.
He's done some things. He told me a long time ago. He said, "Dude, once you get the first one out of the way, no matter how small, big, it's gonna come. It's gonna start coming." And I was like, huh. And I did that side job with this whiskey company, and I was like, oh, that wasn't that bad, and I started thinking about the way he was explaining it to me. Just come up with ideas, just jot it down. It doesn't have to be a story. Just, I don't know, Galactus is fed up and he's gonna eat everything in his path because he's tired of being diplomatic.
Right.
Honestly, that came into my mind, and like, who's gonna stop something like that? And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
what force would stop something like that? Would be interesting. I couldn't shake the idea. I just put it to the side, and then it hit me one day. Doctor Doom would be interesting. Could he stop it?
Mm-hmm.
Probably not. But you would be interested in
he's damn sure gonna try.
and that got me excited because it's like, not only is he going to try, he might just do it. Let's see. How can we get to that conclusion? And man,
Yeah.
the floodgates just started opening. I'm saying that long-winded to say, I pitched that idea, and I think it wouldn't have really happened if I hadn't had the groundwork laid in Bitterroot, because a lot of the ideas, especially in the beginning, I'm throwing in thoughts, and like you said, it's a jazz band at the beginning. These guys are absolutely the scribes behind the words and the stories, but a lot of the kind of like some of the beats and stuff,
Yep.
Stuff that I just kind of implemented in there from a visual standpoint. But I realized, you know what, you wrote a sequence in here to tie in what David and Chuck just wrote. You drew it,
Right.
So yes, I say all that to say yes. And there's more coming.
Yeah. So let's talk about the next movement. Is the next movement something that was Bitterroot? The next movement, is that something that was kind of always planned, and you guys just needed the time, or was it you guys finished Bitterroot and you missed it so much and you wanted to get the band back together, and so here's where we're at.
Yes. Yes, it's just all the above, man. We knew that it was definitely, we knew we needed to do this a while ago. I think for me, truth be told, the guys were kind of waiting on me for the most part.
Sure.
I had, to your last question,
Right.
point,
You
I
got
had a
very
lot of
busy.
stuff. Yeah, just pretty busy, and I'm like, okay, I need to get back to doing this because this thing is, and I guess you can kind of tell just from people are super excited. They're happy that we're coming back. And truth be told, this book might very well be the most necessary comic to date.
Yep.
If it was anyone else, I would have said the same thing. I'm not just saying that because
Sure.
it's my thing. It's definitely we see the responsibility that this book is bringing, and so that's why we're trying to put everything into it.
In what ways do you think fans will most notice the way the three of you have leveled up for this one?
I think the subject matter told in the environment of the civil rights movement.
Mm-hmm. Well, so let's back up a little bit. Why don't you set the stage of what this next chapter of Bitterroot is all about?
So basically, the next generation.
Got the elevator pitch.
Say it again.
I know you've got the elevator pitch for it.
Oh, well, I don't know if I got the elevator pitch for this. I got the elevator pitch overall, but
sure.
The family hunts monsters. Their main objective is to cure this infestation of monsters that's caused from hate. So that has, that obviously affects everyone, but especially those who are brought up in that mindset. And thought process and attitude. They fought the good fight in the 1930s. That generation of the family has gotten older. They trained up the next generation, their children, some grandchildren, and now that generation is now the new front line of the Sangrier family fighting this fight, and their age has brought them to the 1960s during the peak of the civil rights movement. And just like before, we're using the backdrop of actual history as to what would drive the story. Because there's something that we won't really go into the details of what we're using from that time. But there's a lot of things that happened in that time period.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of like pick them. All right, this happened, this happened. Sometimes the research can get a little depressing. I ain't gonna lie to you. Oh my God, this is so overwhelming. But it's also enlightening because you really see throughout all those struggles, all these triumphant moments within it. So, yes, we're using, once again, some major and some minor moments that people may have heard of, from history. We're going to just use that as the backdrop to push the story to this level. I will say this, just like with what we did with the look and the aesthetics from the Harlem Renaissance time period, we used the steampunk technology. We thought, what could be, to your question, a next level up or something that won't feel like it's the same thing we just did. Right. And the aesthetics of the 1960s was very appealing. But how do you build the fantastical element for that time period? And it hit me was, the Jim Steranko, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was the first idea that popped in. And of course, the great Jack Kirby, Alex Toth, and all of his incredible designs from that time period, whether it's monsters, vehicles, all kinds of different. I have over here, I have a stack of books. You can't really see it. You see that red box at the bottom down there? Right on the other side of that is a box of books with Kirby, Steranko, Alex Toth. That time period is what we're gonna create, what we have created, the aesthetics with. So that's the next level, I think, that we're doing here is like, we're gonna give you this look that's totally different from the first 3 arcs, but it's the same, undertones in what the family's about.
Just a lot more roller skates this time around.
A lot more roller skates, go-go boots, the bonnet kind of hair, all that.
Is fashion something that you like to play with as an artist?
Yeah, I like it. I think, honestly, they each have each time period has their things that I feel that are appealing. I think just for me, I'm just excited to play around with some Jack Kirby monsters in tech and and the fashion. I think it's really cool because the fashion, at least now, it's very clean and slick and streamlined. So it's like the sci-fi, track suits and the clean. But then you got all this crazy tech stuff around it. That's a lot of fun.
Nice, I love that. I'll ask you just a few more quick questions, and then I'll let you go. You've been so gracious with your time. I feel like, given all of the work that you have done in this space, you're in almost every interview that I've listened to that you've done, and I've read or whatever, you are one of the biggest champions of this medium, comics in general, specifically. What is it about comics that you love that lets you do things that you feel can't be done anywhere else? Can't be done in animation, can't be done in video games. What is the comics special sauce?
I honestly think the story beats can be very unique. I don't know if you can pull it. You definitely can't pull a lot of things off in like animation. Film can try to do some things, but some things you just need to leave it to the comic medium. I forgot which book it was. It was Court of Owls with with Greg Capullo and Scott Snyder. They did this insane
Oh yeah, you had to
issue
turn
where
the book.
yeah, you kept reading and it kept turning. Try doing that in a film, you know, in a TV show. You might get vertigo and pass out. I mean, there's no way in the world I would watch something like that. But
Sure.
to do it, you know, in a book is brilliant.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean things like that. I mean, I even thought of trying to do something like that. I saw something earlier today that I thought would be really cool um, to tell a specific. I got to see where the story goes with
Sure.
Bitterroot. I'm wrapping up the third issue now. We only got 5 issues for this arc. Um,
Hmm.
I think I can still get away with something. There's something I'm gonna try to do. I think even color. I think you know, shout out to a colorist now, Matt. Oh gosh, my brain, he's gonna kill me. Matt Herms.
Hmm.
Been a long day. He and I really talk a lot about color in scenes.
Yeah.
There's a scene that we're gonna do that we're doing in issue 3. I think it would be pretty awesome.
Nice.
I'm gonna try it and see if people go, "Oh man, he didn't do anything on this thing, but do blah blah blah." But no, I think it's kind of cool the way that yeah, I'm thinking about it. So we'll see.
Yeah. All right. Cool. You've been able to do a bunch of stuff outside of comics as well. I always get delighted when I see a Sanford Greene Fortnite loading screen in a pop up here and there. I feel like, you know, you've talked a bit about how, you know, you're pretty connected in with the hip hop community and things of that nature. So outside of the comics thing, right? Like, so like, how does something like a Fortnite loading screen thing come about, right? And is that, you know, like, do you feel like that's just like is that just like a fun little thing to do, or is it like, oh, cool, you know, X million people may get a chance
Mm-hmm.
to see this, and that's cool too.
Yeah, I think it's a little of all that to some degree. It's cool,
Sure.
but it's also a thing that yeah, a lot of people will see. I mean, kind of a side story here. I got 2 boys. My youngest, he's you know a video game head,
Sure.
and I can hear him in the other room one day talking about, dude, that's my dad. My dad did that. My dad did, you know, playing Fortnite. So that was
Sure.
kind of cool. Working on Spider Verse stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, they get a kick out of that stuff, right?
Hmm.
And truth be told, that's why I enjoy it because you know I'll do certain projects like that because one, I like it, but I also know that they will be into that, and so that kind of helps us to
Hmm.
connect through that stuff because they can care less
Nice.
about Bitterroot. They like they can't wait for they want the movie. Oh, Dad, where's the movie?
Sure.
I'm like, dude, did you read the book yet? At least read the book. Oh yeah, I will one day. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
that's
I know you can't talk much about it. Obviously, it's something that you guys are doing with Regina King, but just even, you know, as little as maybe you can say, what has just that experience been like, kind of overall, right? Because like I think for you guys, you've said that, like, look, this is a story that is obviously incredibly personal to you, and you know, if it were to have gotten adapted, great, but like the story as it is the story you guys wanted to tell. And so now, knowing that it's, you know, potentially going to transcend into to another medium, what's that like?
when you first get the news, it's pretty insane. Um, you're like, I can't believe this person is connected to something that I created over there. You know,
Hmm.
that's the part that really gets me every time. I'm like, this thing that I created over there, that we created in our, you know, studios in
Right.
seclusion, might be something that will change, you know, tons of different lives.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, it's cool if someone reads it and they're impacted by it. That's important. That might be the most important thing. But then that extra thing of this might, who knows? I mean, if this thing comes together,
Yep.
this might get Regina nominated for a Oscar. Who knows? I don't
Sure, right.
know. That would be insane, though. I mean, thinking about it, I hadn't thought about it quite. This is the first time, honestly, I thought about it like this in a while. So you got me thinking again, dreaming. But yeah, I mean, when it first dropped, it was pretty surreal, seeing all the Entertainment Hollywood Reporter and Deadline and all these guys reporting on this, and I'm like, this is crazy. We're just
Right.
comic book dudes, man. And then reality sets in, and you realize, oh yeah, this is one of 10,000 other IPs that's floating around. We happen to have a Regina King connected to
Yep.
this one, so that's good.
Helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Yep.
sure. Obviously, something like that doesn't happen if this book is not done at Image Comics.
Right.
How important was that for you guys, and is that for you guys as you potentially think of other things or whatever?
Well, it's the only game in town that's going to give you ownership, 100% ownership, man, and that's kind of a no-brainer. It's if I can be transparent, yes, it would be beautiful to have a format that kind of does all of your promotion, does all of your whatever booking or whatever. But I think what makes it special, even more so than the ownership, you have even more feeling of ownership when you do your promotion. When you do, I mean, obviously, Image does some things they do tremendous things, but there are certain things that you as the creator, you have to take ownership in and take responsibility in, which gives you more of a value of ownership, if that makes sense.
Right.
So,
it means more.
We're appreciative of everything that that model hasn't changed or pivoted to something else because it some fallout ever. I think it's just been like this since the beginning of Image, which is
I mean, I think that's one of the wildest things that I've heard some folks talk about, where like the model that the founders built for themselves is the same model for creators today. 30 years later. Which is nuts. I love it. Sanford, thank you so much for spending so much time with me today. I am super excited for The Bitterroot, The Next Movement. That book will be, if you're listening to this show in real time, it comes out later in March. If you're listening to this show after the book has come out, hopefully this gives you a little bit more insight into the one of the men behind the book in doing that. But man, Sanford, this has been an absolute blast. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, man. Awesome.
Well, there you had it, everyone. The one, the only Mr. Sanford Greene. He is one of the nicest folks in this business. He's so creative, so humble, and just is so smart. It's to hear him talk about what he tells his class now and what he's able to learn from them, and his trajectory from kind of feeling like he wasn't sure how to break into the business, and then inevitably with persistence and a whole bunch of elbow grease, totally got in and has continued to make his mark on this industry. So I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. The Bitterroot, The Next Movement comes out later this March if you're listening in real time again. Otherwise, if you're listening to this after the fact, go pick up the book, go read it. Everyone's talking about it. It's one of the most anticipated returns and releases of 2025. And so you're going to absolutely love it. That's all I've got time for today. If you can, as a way to support the show, let folks know that you're listening to the show. If you made it this part and you haven't X'd out yet or anything else, take a screenshot of the episode and share it on social. Share it on Instagram. Share it on X. Share it on Blue Sky. Make sure you tag me and I will share it 100%. And then if you want to go the extra mile, go ahead and leave a review over on iTunes, a 5-star review. If I read it on the air, I'll send you a sticker. It really goes a long way in helping us in the algorithm just kind of get surfaced up as a show to listen to. You can do the same thing on Spotify. You can leave comments on the episodes of Spotify. You can also leave comments on YouTube. The show is on YouTube. We are working on adding the video component to the show over there as well. So hopefully we'll have that in the next couple of weeks. So you have something to look forward to there. And then again, like I say every week, please head on over to your local comic book shop and pick up something to read. Try something new. Pick up your Batmans and your Supermans, your Transformers and all that. But try something new. Try something from a creator that you like. Try something from a creator that you maybe never heard of before. Just whatever you do, head to the comic book shop, support those local retailers, and yeah, because again, as long as you keep reading, we're going to keep talking about them. We'll talk to you later, folks. Have a good one.